A person who has survived a severe illness may learn to cherish every moment of life. Someone who has faced major career failures may discover the true meaning of perseverance and self-improvement. The lessons from suffering are not always easy, but they bring lasting and profound value. This is not just a philosophy, but a guiding light, helping us understand and overcome the challenges of life. Let us begin by confronting a truth. Suffering is an inseparable part of life. Regardless of who you are, where you come from, whether you are rich or poor, successful or struggling, we all face suffering in one form or another. From physical pain and emotional sorrow, to feelings of disappointment and loss, every aspect of life can bring suffering. But why did the Buddha affirm that suffering is not just a phenomenon, but the very essence of life? In Buddhist teachings, suffering is not just an ordinary pain, but a noble truth. Noble not because we must endure it, but because by understanding the nature of suffering, we can find a path to overcome it and liberate ourselves from the bonds of worldly pain. An office worker may feel exhausted trying to meet tight deadlines. A farmer may worry about crop failures due to bad weather. A business owner may struggle with financial pressures and responsibilities toward employees. In these situations, suffering doesn't just come from the work itself, but from the expectations and desires that things should always go as planned. An office worker may feel exhausted trying to meet tight deadlines. A farmer may worry about crop failures due to bad weather. A business owner may struggle with financial pressures and responsibilities toward employees. In these situations, suffering doesn't just come from the work itself, but from the expectations and desires that things should always go as planned. When they don't, disappointment and frustration arise. Suffering in relationships. Everyone has experienced pain in relationships, whether it's a rift with a friend, heartbreak in love, or the loss of a loved one. For instance, a mother who loses her child may feel as though her entire world has collapsed because no one and nothing can replace that loss. Or when two close friends grow apart due to misunderstandings, they carry emotional wounds that are hard to heal. We suffer because we love, because we are attached, but it is also these emotions that teach us the true value of connection. Suffering from desires and expectations. There's a parable about a poor man who dreamed of owning a large house. He worked tirelessly day and night and finally bought the house. But upon moving in, he realized it didn't bring the happiness he had imagined. He began desiring more wealth, and this endless cycle continued. This is a vivid illustration of the Buddha's teaching. Suffering arises from craving and attachment. When we are never satisfied, never content with what we have, suffering inevitably follows. Suffering from impermanence. Everything in life is subject to change. A child may feel joyful playing with a new toy, but within days, they grow bored and want something else. An adult may achieve great success in their career, but constantly worry that their fame or position won't last. Even the happiest moments eventually fade away. This is the nature of impermanence, which the Buddha pointed out as a root cause of human suffering. Lessons from suffering. Opportunities to growth. Buddha did not stop at pointing out the existence of suffering. He also taught us how to face it. First, understand that suffering is not something to fear or avoid. Instead, it is a precious lesson that helps us grow and evolve. For example, think of a young bamboo tree. It cannot grow tall and strong without enduring strong winds and heavy storms. Similarly, humans grow through challenges and suffering, becoming more resilient, wiser, and more compassionate in the process. Look at those who have endured great suffering in their lives. A person who has survived a severe illness may learn to cherish every moment of life. Someone who has faced major career failures may discover the true meaning of perseverance and self-improvement. The lessons from suffering are not always easy, but they bring lasting and profound value. Suffering. To understand and overcome. Dear friends, the Buddha's lesson on suffering is not meant to weigh us down or make us pessimistic. On the contrary, it helps us see life with greater clarity. Suffering is not something evil, but a natural part of existence. Instead of running from it, let us learn to live in harmony with it, to accept it as a companion on our journey. Most importantly, let us transform that suffering into a springboard that leads us toward enlightenment and peace. Each time you face suffering, remind yourself that it is a part of the journey to growth. Ignite the flame of awareness, and you will find light even in the darkest challenges. Suffering is not the end, but the beginning of transformation, wisdom, and compassion. Suffering is an undeniable truth of life, present in every corner of our existence. It touches us in ways we might not even notice, seeping into the mundane and extraordinary moments alike. To truly grasp the Buddha's profound teaching on suffering, we must immerse ourselves in its various manifestations, those that arise in our daily struggles, in our closest relationships, in our unrelenting desires, and even in the nature of time itself. These experiences are not distant or theoretical. They are the very fabric of our lives. Work, for example, is often a defining feature of our identity and a source of purpose. Yet it is also fertile ground for suffering. Imagine the office worker, drowning in deadlines and the relentless pressure to perform. They feel trapped, their energy depleted, constantly worrying if their efforts are enough to satisfy expectations, those of their bosses, their colleagues, or even themselves. Or take the farmer, whose livelihood depends entirely on forces beyond their control. After months of backbreaking labor, an unseasonal storm or a drought can erase everything they've worked for, leaving them in despair. Then there is the business owner, who lies awake at night, burdened by financial responsibilities and the livelihoods of employees who depend on their decisions. In all these cases, suffering is not merely the result of hard work, but of unfulfilled expectations and the gap between what we wish for and what reality delivers. In our relationships, the sources of joy and connection are often the same as those that bring us the deepest pain. A parent mourning the loss of a child experiences a grief so profound it feels insurmountable, as though their world has been irrevocably altered. A breakup or divorce leaves the people who once shared love and dreams, now facing emptiness, resentment, and shattered hopes. Even in friendships, misunderstandings can transform intimacy into distance, leaving us to mourn the loss of trust and closeness that once felt unshakable. Why does this happen? The Buddha taught that suffering in relationships arises because of our attachment. We cling to the people we love, hoping to freeze moments of happiness in time, unwilling to accept the changes and endings that are inevitable. This clinging, this refusal to acknowledge life's impermanence, turns love into a double-edged sword, a source of both fulfillment and pain. Desires and expectations, too, are a powerful source of suffering, as they trap us in an endless cycle of striving and dissatisfaction. Consider a young professional who dreams of owning a luxurious home. They work tirelessly, sacrificing their health, relationships, and free time, all in pursuit of this goal. When they finally achieve it, the joy is fleeting. Soon, they find themselves longing for a bigger house, a more prestigious neighborhood, or other symbols of success. The cycle begins anew, leaving them perpetually unsatisfied. This is the nature of craving, which the Buddha identified as the root of suffering. No matter how much we achieve or acquire, as long as we are driven by insatiable desires, contentment will remain out of reach. Even the most joyful moments in life carry within them the seeds of suffering because of the impermanent nature of all things. A child receiving a new toy is ecstatic at first, but as the novelty fades, the toy is cast aside, and the child's desire shifts to something new. Similarly, adults experience this impermanence in subtler but equally impactful ways. A major promotion or a life milestone might bring euphoria initially, but it is often followed by anxiety, worrying about how to maintain the success, or striving to achieve something greater. Life's most cherished moments, such as a warm family gathering or a breathtaking sunset, are inherently transient. We long to hold on to them, but they slip through our fingers, leaving behind a bittersweet ache. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence reminds us that suffering arises not from the changes themselves, but from our resistance to them, our futile desire to make what is temporary last forever. Reflecting on these everyday experiences, we begin to see a common thread. Suffering does not solely come from external circumstances, but is deeply rooted in our own minds. Our attachments, cravings, and resistance to change magnify life's inherent challenges, turning them into profound sources of pain. This truth, as daunting as it may seem, is also liberating. It means that while we cannot control the world around us, we can transform how we relate to it. The Buddha's teachings invite us to shift our perspective, to embrace life's impermanence, and to find peace in its ever-changing nature. Take, for instance, the story of a man who spent his life chasing material wealth. He believed that financial security would shield him from life's hardships. Yet, as he amassed his fortune, he realized that his fears and anxieties only grew. The more he had, the more he worried about losing it. This realization led him to the Buddha's path, where he learned that true peace comes not from accumulating possessions, but from freeing oneself from attachment. By letting go of his cravings, he found a sense of contentment that no amount of wealth could ever provide. Or, consider a woman who, after enduring a painful breakup, turned to mindfulness practice to cope with her grief. Through meditation, she began to see her pain not as an enemy to be fought, but as a teacher to be understood. She realized that her suffering stemmed not only from the loss itself, but from her resistance to accepting it. As she embraced the impermanence of all things, she found the strength to let go, to heal, and to open her heart again. These stories remind us that suffering, though inevitable, is not insurmountable. It can be a powerful catalyst for growth and transformation, if we approach it with awareness and wisdom. The Buddha's teachings do not deny the reality of suffering. Instead, they illuminate a path through it, a path that leads to understanding, compassion, and liberation. Suffering, then, is not something to fear or avoid, but a profound part of the human experience. It challenges us, teaches us, and ultimately guides us toward a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. By embracing this truth, we can transform our pain into a source of strength, and our struggles into stepping stones on the path to peace. Suffering is a reality that no one can escape. Yet within its trials lies a quiet and profound invitation, the chance to grow, to transform, and to discover the deeper truths of life. The Buddha taught that suffering, while inevitable, is not the enemy. Rather, it is a teacher, a guide, that when embraced with openness and understanding, leads us toward wisdom, resilience, and peace. To truly grasp this transformative power, we must delve into the ways suffering shapes our lives and unlocks hidden strengths we might otherwise overlook. Imagine for a moment the profound impact of impermanence. Life is a constant flux, with every moment slipping quietly into the next. While this impermanence can be a source of sorrow when we lose loved ones, when cherished moments fade, or when circumstances change unexpectedly, also carries with it an invaluable lesson. Consider a parent who has watched their child grow from infancy into adulthood. Each stage of the child's life is fleeting, and the parent often longs to hold on to the innocence of earlier years. Yet, in acknowledging the transience of these stages, the parent learns to appreciate the present more deeply. They come to cherish the laughter of a young child, the achievements of a growing teenager, and the wisdom of an independent adult, knowing that each phase is a gift, no matter how brief. Suffering also teaches us to let go, a lesson that may be one of life's most difficult, yet rewarding challenges. Much of our pain arises not from the events themselves, but from our attachment to how we believe life should be. Picture an artist who spends years perfecting a masterpiece, only to see it destroyed in an unforeseen accident. Their initial anguish is profound, yet over time, they might come to understand that their true art lies not in the finished piece, but in the act of creation itself. By releasing their attachment to the outcome, they find freedom not only to create again, but to find joy in the process rather than the result. This principle of letting go extends beyond possessions and achievements. It applies equally to relationships, where attachment can be both a source of joy and of profound sorrow. Consider someone mourning the end of a long-term relationship. The pain of separation is sharp and consuming, tied to memories and dreams that no longer hold a future. But as they slowly release their grip on what was, they begin to see that the love they shared, while no longer present, was real and meaningful in its time. In letting go, they honor the past while opening their hearts to new possibilities. Through suffering, we also develop a heightened sense of empathy and compassion. Pain connects us to others in a way that transcends words. A person who has endured the grief of losing a loved one becomes more attuned to the pain of others facing similar losses. A community recovering from a natural disaster often bands together in mutual support, their shared suffering fostering bonds of solidarity and care. Compassion, born from our own struggles, allows us to extend kindness to others and, in turn, to heal ourselves. It is through this recognition of shared humanity that suffering loses its isolating grip and becomes a force for connection and understanding. Resilience is another gift forged in the crucible of suffering. Like a blacksmith tempering steel in fire, adversity strengthens our spirit and sharpens our resolve. Think of someone who has faced financial ruin. They may begin with despair, questioning their worth and abilities. Yet, as they rebuild their life piece by piece, they discover an inner strength they never knew they possessed. They learn to adapt, to persevere, and to find joy in the simple act of trying again. Over time, the experience of loss transforms into a source of confidence and wisdom, equipping them to face future challenges with courage. The Buddha himself embodied this journey of transformation. Born into privilege, Siddhartha Gautama lived a life shielded from suffering. Yet, his encounters with sickness, aging, and death awakened him to the universal nature of pain. It was this realization that set him on the path to enlightenment. His story reminds us that suffering, far from being a barrier, can be the gateway to profound self-discovery. It pushes us to question the nature of existence, to seek deeper meaning, and to find freedom in understanding life's impermanence. Let us also consider the transformative power of gratitude equality, often born in the aftermath of suffering. A cancer survivor, for example, may emerge from their journey with a profound appreciation for life's simplest pleasures: the warmth of the sun on their skin, the laughter of a friend, or the quiet peace of a morning cup of tea. Their brush with mortality sharpens their awareness of life's fragility and beauty, allowing them to savor the present moment in a way they might not have before. In this way, suffering, while painful, also serves as a reminder to treasure the blessings we often overlook. Moreover, suffering compels us to seek purpose and meaning. When faced with profound pain, many people turn inward, asking themselves questions they might never have considered otherwise. What truly matters? What is my place in the world? For some, the answers lie in acts of service, helping others as a way to transcend their own pain. Consider a person who, after surviving a personal tragedy, dedicates their life to supporting others who face similar challenges. Their suffering becomes the foundation for a life of purpose, their pain transformed into compassion and action. Yet, it is important to recognize that suffering does not automatically lead to growth. Transformation requires intention, mindfulness, and the willingness to confront pain rather than flee from it. A person grieving the loss of a loved one might initially feel consumed by their sorrow, unable to imagine a way forward. But through practices like meditation, journaling, or therapy, they begin to process their emotions and uncover the deeper lessons hidden within their grief. This conscious engagement with suffering turns it from a source of despair into a wellspring of insight and healing. Ladies and gentlemen, suffering is not simply an unavoidable aspect of life. Born into privilege, Siddhartha Gautama lived a life shielded from suffering. Yet his encounters with sickness, aging, and death awakened him to the universal nature of pain. It was this realization that set him on the path to enlightenment. His story reminds us that suffering, far from being a barrier, can be the gateway to profound self-discovery. It pushes us to question the nature of existence, to seek deeper meaning, and to find freedom in understanding life's impermanence. Let us also consider the transformative power of gratitude equality, often born in the aftermath of suffering. Picture someone experiencing overwhelming anxiety about the future. Their mind is filled with what-ifs, painting scenarios of fear and failure. Through mindfulness, they can bring their attention back to the present, noticing the rhythm of their breath, the sensations in their body, and the sounds around them. This practice does not erase their anxiety, but allows them to see it as a passing phenomenon rather than an all-consuming truth. Over time, mindfulness creates a calm, steady ground from which they can respond to challenges with clarity and resilience. Many view it as an inevitable, cruel aspect of existence that must be endured. However, the Buddhist teachings reveal a deeper truth. Suffering is not an eternal punishment, nor an unchangeable reality. It is a profound teacher, a gateway to liberation that invites us to transform our pain into wisdom, compassion, and peace. This journey of transformation requires courage, patience, and a willingness to engage deeply with the truths of our lives. But its rewards are immense freedom that is not bound by external circumstances. At the core of this transformation is acceptance. Many view it as an inevitable, cruel aspect of existence that must be endured. However, the Buddha's teachings reveal a deeper truth. Suffering is not an eternal punishment, nor an unchangeable reality. It is a profound teacher, a gateway to liberation that invites us to transform our pain into wisdom, compassion, and peace. This journey of transformation requires courage, patience, and a willingness to engage deeply with the truths of our lives. But its rewards are immense freedom that is not bound by external circumstances. At the core of this transformation is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity. It is an active and courageous acknowledgement of reality as it is. Resistance to suffering, the denial, the avoidance, the attempt to control what is uncontrollable, and it deepens its grip on us. Imagine someone facing the end of a cherished relationship. Their initial reaction might be to resist, to hold on tightly to memories and dreams that are no longer possible. They might replay conversations, search for explanations, and struggle against the reality of separation. This resistance often amplifies the pain, creating a cycle of longing and despair. Acceptance, by contrast, allows them to face the truth with open eyes. It creates a space in which healing can begin, not by erasing the pain, but by integrating it into the broader fabric of their life. Once we accept suffering, we are invited to examine its roots. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering arises from craving and attachment, our desire for life to conform to our expectations, and our resistance to change. Consider someone who has invested years of effort into building a career, only to lose their job unexpectedly. While the external loss is real and painful, the deeper suffering often stems from their attachment to their professional identity, their sense of worth tied to their achievements, and their fear of an uncertain future. This craving for stability and control fuels their distress. By examining these attachments, they may come to understand that their value does not depend on their job, and that new opportunities for growth and fulfillment lie beyond their current circumstances. Letting go, a practice at the heart of liberation, is one of life's most difficult, yet transformative lessons. Letting go does not mean abandoning what matters to us. It means releasing the grip of clinging, the desperate need to hold on to what is impermanent. Imagine a parent whose children have grown up and moved away. The parent might feel a deep sense of loss, longing for the closeness of earlier years. Yet, by letting go of the expectation that their relationship with their children should remain the same, the parent can embrace the beauty of a new phase of bond that evolves into one of mutual respect and independence. Letting go allows us to honor the past while opening ourselves to the present and future. This process of letting go is supported by the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness teaches us to be fully present with our experiences, even the painful ones, without judgment or resistance. It helps us observe our emotions, thoughts, and sensations with curiosity and compassion. Picture someone experiencing overwhelming anxiety about the future. Their mind is filled with what-ifs, painting scenarios of fear and failure. Through mindfulness, they can bring their attention back to the present, noticing the rhythm of their breath, the sensations in their body, and the sounds around them. This practice does not erase their anxiety, but allows them to see it as a passing phenomenon rather than an all-consuming truth. Over time, mindfulness creates a calm, steady ground from which they can respond to challenges with clarity and resilience. Compassion is another profound gift that arises from engaging with suffering. When we endure pain, we often feel isolated, as though our struggles are uniquely ours. But suffering is universal. It connects us to every other being. Consider someone who has faced the heartbreak of losing a loved one. Their grief, while deeply personal, also awakens them to the shared nature of loss. They may find themselves offering comfort to others in similar situations, their words carrying a depth of understanding that only comes from lived experience. Compassion transforms suffering from a source of isolation into a bridge of connection. It teaches us to let go of what binds us, to cherish the fleeting beauty of life, and to cultivate a heart that is both tender and strong. In the words of the Buddha, you cannot travel the path until you have become the path itself. Through suffering, we become the path, discovering within ourselves the capacity for transformation and the boundless peace that lies beyond. His story reminds us that liberation is not about escaping life's difficulties, but about transforming our perspective and practices to transcend them. Another powerful example is that of a person who rebuilds their life after a natural disaster. Initially overwhelmed by the loss of their home, possessions, and sense of security, they might feel paralyzed by despair. But as they begin to help others in their community, offering support, sharing resources, and rebuilding together, they discover a renewed sense of purpose and connection. Consider the story of a man who survived years of imprisonment under oppressive conditions. Deprived of his freedom and subjected to immense hardship, he could have succumbed to anger and despair. Yet, through mindfulness and compassion, he cultivated an inner freedom that no external force could take from him. He described his suffering not as an end, but as a profound teacher that revealed the boundless strength of the human spirit. His story reminds us that liberation is not about escaping life's difficulties, but about transforming our perspective and practices to transcend them. Another powerful example is that of a person who rebuilds their life after a natural disaster. Initially overwhelmed by the loss of their home, possessions, and sense of security, they might feel paralyzed by despair. But as they begin to help others in their community, offering support, sharing resources, and rebuilding together, they discover a renewed sense of purpose and connection. Their suffering, while profound, becomes a source of strength, compassion, and resilience. Through acceptance, mindfulness, compassion, and the ethical guidance of the Eightfold Path, we can transform suffering into a journey of growth and liberation. This transformation is not about denying or diminishing pain. It is about meeting it with awareness and using it as a springboard to deeper understanding and peace. Suffering, far from being an insurmountable obstacle, is a profound invitation to grow, to connect, and to awaken. It teaches us to let go of what binds us, to cherish the fleeting beauty of life, and to cultivate a heart that is both tender and strong. In the words of the Buddha, you cannot travel the path until you have become the path itself. Through suffering, we become the path, discovering within ourselves the capacity for transformation and the boundless peace that lies beyond.